Welcome to my Action Research Project presentation. My presentation is going to begin going over the essential questions that led me through my research, followed by a description of the study and the subjects that were involved. Next, we'll go through the research process that I went through with each of my classes. And finally, I will answer the essential questions based on the research that was conducted. To begin, let's look at the essential questions that led me through my research. What are the benefits for providing online discussions as daily assessments of what students are comprehending and connecting with regards to the selected novel being read in class? Second, what drawbacks are there to conducting discussions online rather than during class? Third, compared to previous years, how do students demonstrate higher order thinking skills with relation to their comprehension by participating in online independent discussions rather than teacher-led classroom discussions? And finally, the fourth question I would like to research is how do the third and fourth grade students compare with each other in their overall interactions and quality of discussions? So in order for you to understand the phases I went through in this research project, you need some more background. I completed this action research with my third and fourth grade students in my ELA classes. The groups I teach are ability-based, and I happen to have the above grade level students for third grade and the grade level students for fourth grade. The third grade class has 10 students in attendance, while the fourth grade class has 12. The fourth grade class has 4 students that have 504 or IEP accommodations. I have a set of 12 student laptops in my classroom at all times. I also have a smartboard, a Samsung Windows 8 tablet, and my own personal iPad, all of which I use almost daily in my instruction. Each reading group read a selected novel that is traditionally read each year as part of the grade level curriculum. Third grade students read the novel Sarah Plain and Tall, while the fourth grade students read the novel Shiloh. Traditionally, students and teacher read the novel aloud or listen to the audio recordings and answer written comprehension questions and vocabulary development quizzes based on the novels. There's also a level of discussion that takes place between the teacher and the students to guide through the reading. This action research focused on how students demonstrate their understanding of the novel they read through interactive daily discussions held on a learning management site called Schoology. The students were given a response prompt to consider each day to connect and respond to at the conclusion of their daily reading. Once students posted their own discussion response, their classmates' responses would then appear, at which point they were to read and respond to at least 2 other classmates. Their interactions were monitored throughout the study, but at first they received minimal suggestions and support from the teacher, myself. After a couple of days doing this, I began interacting with the discussions and giving suggestions for how the students could make the discussion more meaningful. I then had to add a third phase onto my research design because the fourth graders were not adjusting as I had anticipated. The third phase of this research only applies to the fourth grade students. The third grade, as you will see, did not need the third phase. For phase 1 of the research, students were given a discussion prompt and had to initially respond themselves, and then they had to read and respond to 2 or more other students. There was limited teacher interaction and support for this phase. Students in grade 3 did a really nice job coming out with their initial posts. I thought that they showed a level of connection with the literature personally, and they used some really nice story details, and I really liked how the students communicated back and forth with each other. Here are just some samples from the first day of postings. The grade 4 students in phase 1 didn't demonstrate as high of a level as the third graders did with responding to the discussion questions and having communication back and forth. This is just a small sample of some of the students that responded, and these were probably the
better responses that were provided by the students in this class, which is why you can see that some work needs to be done to motivate and get the fourth graders up to a higher level of response. For phase 2 of the research project, students continued to be given discussion prompts throughout the story that they were reading, which is Sarah Plain and Tall in grade 3, Shiloh in grade 4, and this time I offered more tips and feedback to encourage higher level of discussion. The third graders continued to demonstrate very high levels of connection personally to the literature. They were able to relate their personal experiences to what the characters were experiencing in the book, and I could not be happier with the result that they came up with. Here's just one example of a student that normally has difficulty getting his ideas down on paper and was able to find a way to easily respond to the discussion prompt as to what they would miss if they had to move away from home. Here are just a couple more samples of the third grade posts. Here's another one up here that is responding to the same prompt as the previous slide, and just some interaction back and forth between the students. Down here we have 3 boys who responded to their final prompt of the book, where they had to choose a character from the story and connect to it personally and give examples why they connected to that character. I think all 3 of these boys did a really great job giving examples from their personal life and from the story. And again, I couldn't be prouder of how well the third graders interacted and wrote discussions for Sarah Plain and Tall. On to fourth grade for phase 2. Students were given a little bit of feedback and some tips from me, and as you can see, a lot more student interaction responding to their classmates' initial posts. However, the type of responses that they're giving are not very thoughtful or helpful. They're just basically pats on the back, which is great, but they really need to think deeper about what they're reading and what they're responding to so that they can help their classmates and also expand their knowledge and understanding of the story in a different way.
So as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, phase 3 was only for fourth grade students. I decided that they needed a more structured way to respond, and they needed to have some kind of accountability. So I decided for their last 2 discussions, they were going to be graded. Students were given this rubric that I'm showing you right here. It was out of 16 points. It was very plain and simple. Their personal responses needed to show insight and expression. They needed to use story details to support their opinions. They needed to respond to classmates, asking questions and giving thoughtful feedback. And then their sentence structure needed to be accurate and to the best of their ability.
Once I implemented the grading rubric, the students' level of response did go up quite a bit. I felt that they were really connecting to the literature a lot better and giving a lot more story detail and emotion and connection to what was happening in the story. I also liked the responses that we were finally getting back and forth from the students in response to each other. They started to ask questions and make points that got the person that they were responding to thinking about what they wrote and rethinking about what they wrote, which is what I was hoping for in the beginning. It just took the fourth graders a little bit longer to get to that point. Here are just a couple more samples from the fourth graders giving some more feedback to one another about an initial post. And again, I'm happy that they finally understood what was being expected of them, and I'm glad that the rubric did what it was intended to do, and that was lay out the expectations and really light a fire in them to think more deeply about what they were reading and how they're responding to the literature and to each other. One final sample from phase 3 of grade 4. Here's a student that sometimes struggles processing and connecting to the literature and getting his thoughts out on paper and really being able to answer the question and the task at hand. He really connected to this story because of his love for animals, and you can really see some personal emotion shining through in his response to the final discussion post. And then, even though he didn't choose a side as I had asked them to, I did want to let him know that I was proud of the way that he answered the question and gave great details and connected to the literature. Even his classmates were picking up on the fact that he didn't really write his response the way that I had asked them to, but in the end, I'm happy with the result.
So now that you've seen some of the student production of my research project, I'd like to go back to answering the essential questions that I posed at the beginning. The first one, what are the benefits for providing online discussions as daily assessments of what students are comprehending and connecting with regards to the selected novel being read in class? The third graders helped answer this question better than the fourth graders did. I felt that the third graders brought out a lot of personal connection to the story that I don't think I would have heard from them had we had normal classroom discussion about the book. I think the students would have been a little bit more reserved. I think that by typing, they feel like they are not being judged as much as speaking out in front of the class. And I think that is still true for the fourth graders too, although it took them a little bit longer to begin responding in that way. So the main benefit I see here is that the students really stepped out of their comfort zone and really dug deep into their own personal experiences to connect with the book rather than just answering general comprehension questions about the book. They're understanding the book and learning empathy and how to connect with the characters in a very different way than they're used to. What drawbacks are there to conducting discussions online rather than during class? As you could see with the fourth graders especially, that was one of the drawbacks, was that they were not responding to the level that I wanted them to. And it took a lot of pushing and prodding to get them to that level. It wasn't until the last 3 chapters of the book that they were starting to respond to the level I would like them to in connecting with the story and really giving thoughtful responses to one another and to their own initial posts. With Common Core and everything, students really need to make sure that they are using story details to support their opinions. And we've been hammering this all year long, and I felt that this would be a great opportunity for them to use that skill. And I think that we still have to work on it, but I am a little bit more confident about it now. Seeing that it's in there, it just takes a little bit to pull it out of them. And hopefully moving forward into future pieces of literature, their responses will be more higher order thinking responses than the initial ones early on in the action research project. The third essential question that we need to answer here is, compared to previous years, how do students demonstrate higher order thinking skills with relation to their comprehension by participating in online independent discussions rather than teacher-led classroom discussions? Again, I think I've already said this a couple times, that they were able to connect to the literature much more personally than they would if we were having a teacher-led discussion. Because I think they were more comfortable typing their feelings and thoughts than they would have been speaking them in front of their peers and being judged right then and there by their peers. I think by typing, it actually brought that vulnerability they have in front of their peers down a little bit. Compared to previous years also, I think that the students really enjoyed the book a lot more, both third and fourth grade with Shiloh and Sarah Plain and Tall. And I know that I enjoyed the book a lot more, hearing the way that they could connect to the stories. I think that personal connection really helps them understand the literature on a whole new level and makes them appreciate their life and the things that they have, and understanding empathy for other people, even if they are literary characters. Finally, how do the third and fourth grade students compare in their overall interactions and quality of discussions? I think I've spoken to this throughout the presentation, that the third graders really stepped up and right off the bat were into the book and were able to give me great responses. They interacted with each other. They helped each other improve their responses. And I was truly impressed with the level of discussions they were having. The fourth graders, again, they did need a lot of extra prompting to get to the level that I was aiming for in these discussions online. They were very slow to really interact with each other. They didn't give real thoughtful responses to each other. 1, 2, 3 word responses such as "I agree," "great job." They weren't really trying to get more information from each other from their discussions. Again, I was very happy towards the end with the fourth grade students that they finally stepped up. It's too bad that I had to initiate a grading sequence in order to get them to that level, but it proved to me that it was in them, and they just, for whatever the reason, needed that accountability factor in there in order to produce the level of work that they need to produce in order to be a successful student in English language arts.
About halfway through the research process, I gave students an opportunity to complete a survey on Google Forms regarding their feelings and thoughts about how we were reading the novels and how we were conducting the discussions. Rather than having them in the classroom, we were having them online, and I wanted to get some feedback from them to see how they felt. I wanted to make it anonymous so that they could feel free to respond honestly, and the survey results, as you'll see in the next coming slides, were very honest and forthcoming. This particular portion of the survey, students had to give me an open-ended response about why they liked having the discussions about the novel online and why they did not. Very quickly down here, I didn't have any objections to having the discussions online. They all seem to be enjoying them. And this is even more true when you read these up here. About the top half is mostly third grade students and the bottom half are the fourth grade students. And you can tell because Shiloh is cited down here, Sarah Plain and Tall is cited down here. And just from knowing when the students completed the survey, I know that the third graders took it before the fourth graders. So it's easy for me to tell which responses were from which group. There are some really great responses that helped validate what I had hoped they were feeling and thinking as a result of having these discussions online. I'm really happy with their satisfaction with the assignments, and I intend on continuing having a lot of discussions about what we're doing in class in this manner because of their positive feedback. Here's just some basic responses to the survey, indicating their grade level and their gender. I think it's important to note that 76% of the students that I teach in reading and writing happen to be female. Up here is a pretty nice indicator. Students feel a lot more independent as a learner by using Schoology in their everyday learning, which is a really good indication because Schoology is new for them and they're not using it in all their classes, but they are using it in all the classes they have with me. So I'm really happy with their satisfaction with that. The final question in the survey asks the students how comfortable they are using technology as part of their daily learning, and an overwhelming amount chose 5, which was the highest they could have chosen in their comfort level. So, and the one lone 4. This indicates that technology is very important and very easy to facilitate into students' daily learning, and their comfort level with the technology that they're using is probably more comfortable than what most teachers have. So we need to take that information going forward and allow the students to help in this journey by using their comfort level to help each other and to help teachers become more comfortable with using technology as part of daily learning.